Hey guys, welcome. This is a very exciting start to an entire series looking at emotional health, specifically in the aviation field. And I got, in my opinion, one of the best guys with me to talk about it, Andrew Visagie. And myself and Andrew, we've got a very colorful history where he actually helped me personally through some pretty dark times. And that led to many, many conversations about our industry, about aviation, the ups and downs within aviation that we all share. And that led us down quite a long rabbit hole of a year and a half, 2 years of discussions, what we can do, how we can bring my understanding, deep understanding of the aviation world and his deep understanding of the emotional side of life and how we can together make quite a big impact on as many people as possible. Um, Andrew, welcome. Thanks for being on this journey with me. This is all new. We just figured out the setup 5 minutes ago. So it's all very exciting. I couldn't have started it with a better guy than you. Um, just you've got some practice in understanding when things don't work out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah,
So thanks for being here, man.
it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. So thank you for having me and for trusting me in this space to not only be of service to you, but to be of service to the people that you serve, so that we can turn experience into wisdom, so that other people can learn from that, so that
Mm.
they don't have to go hit their heads in the same way that we all did.
Yeah. So I want you to actually do a bit of a introduction for us because I've had a look at your book. It's called Understanding Unlocks: How to Guide for Developing Self-Awareness and Empathy as a Superpowers to Heal and Transform Relationships. So there's a lot of emphasis you put on relationships, and I'll share this book with you guys if you want to get in. A lot of emphasis on relationships. Um, in the aviation space, I think I just want to jump in with that. How important do you think relationships are, I suppose, within the cockpit and outside the cockpit, and how those two mm, interrelate with the life of a career pilot going through all their own career challenges?
Well, Franz, everything we do happens in the context of relationship. It's either in relationship with others or in relationship with ourselves. And all the hurts and traumas we experience in our lives happen in the context of relationship. And so does healing. Healing isn't a solo endeavor. I know there's a lot of emphasis on the solo flight and being able to operate on your own steam and to be independent, but that isn't a way to live life. We are designed to connect and to be in relationship. And when we feel safe and secure, we thrive. And there's a neurological underpinning to that. When we feel connected, the prefrontal cortex is online, which enables us to make well informed decisions, to see the bigger picture, to be human. And when we feel unsafe, the animal brain is online and that fights or flies, or it gets the hell out of there. That's the two ones. And then there's also fawn or freeze. That's what the brain does when it feels under threat. So if you're in the cockpit or with friends or with your partner at home, if you feel unsafe, triggered, then your brain's going to kick into survival mode. You're going to lose access to the parts of your brain that makes you you, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make rash decisions. You're going to lose perspective. So um, I can really jump into this, but relationships are everything, and being able to track where you go into fight or flight and where you are present is super important. And how to actively navigate those relationships is as important as that self-awareness.
Mm. I feel like we spend all our time on figuring out practical, physical things. So, like with you guys, you spend all your time upskilling yourself in the aircraft, upskilling yourself in your career, to know where to follow each and every SOP and um, be, 5 steps ahead of the machine. But what I kind of hear you saying is you need that same skill set emotionally and in your relationships where you can almost identify things before it happens. Does that mean you need to do work on understanding yourself better first?
Um, well, yes, as you were speaking, I was thinking about it, the impact of spontaneity and generative language. The point of being a pilot, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the ability to respond when things go wrong.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what all the training is about. When everything goes right, you know, anyone
No.
can fly, but it's when
No.
things go wrong. And in relationships and in our lives, it's how we respond when things go wrong that makes the difference in wealth, in the enjoyment you get out of life, fulfillment. Um, so that ability and the catchphrase is to be authentic, be yourself, and spontaneous,
Mm.
to be able to respond in the moment. And you speaking about SOPs and about procedure and all of that in the context of an airplane, it's all mapped out. I mean, as a pilot, they are literally at the helm, and I can imagine that it's quite stressful outside of that space where there aren't SOPs, there
Mm.
aren't procedures, things can go haywire, and then they're not in control. That could be devastating. It could
Mm.
be a blow to the ego. It can really screw with someone's head who's in control up there, but down here, things aren't as tightly woven.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's all interlinked in a very big way. So I on the financial side of things, I very often talk about having control over your finances in the same way that you've got control over your machine. But I think for purposes of this um, talk, if we look at maybe stresses, extra stresses outside of the cockpit, real life stresses, have you been able to identify any kind of uh, specific ways? Like I want to say quick fire, you know, if you feel like you're getting stressed, here are the 3 things you can do to calm yourself down. Like, do you have any kind of quick fire hints? I know we're going to do a whole series on that and a course on it. But
Mm.
what would you say in 30 seconds?
30 seconds, quick fire hits, empathy, breath work, self awareness. Can I break them down for you?
Cover it.
All right. It's not necessarily going to be 30 seconds, but I'll try my best. So, empathy is the highest form of intelligence because it requires you to put all of your stuff on the back burner and see the world through someone else's eyes. And that's next level because that requires you to really kick your prefrontal cortex into its highest gear because you have to park all of your emotions and listen to the other person to identify what they're feeling and then to express the understanding of what they are feeling given the context that you share. Now,
Without being judgmental.
yeah, and you can't be sarcastic either because that's really going to screw up the process.
That's not going to work well with my personality.
It's not about personality. Unfortunately, you don't have an out on this one.
Huh.
That's why it links to self awareness. Because if the example I use in practice is, let's say, in the first 6 years of your life, you grew up in a really terrible space and it's horrible, and the person who hurt you smoked Camel Plain. And now at 25 years old, you're out of that context, you haven't experienced it in decades. You around a campfire and someone lights up a Camel Plain. You have panic attack. You don't have conscious awareness. You don't have a conscious memory of what happened to you. But because of how your brain is wired, that amygdala, which is the emotional center, the alarm system, will recognize that smell and associate it with hurt, and it'll activate your fight or flight. Okay, that's the autonomic nervous system. It's your background processes. When you go into fight or flight, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which means that you release adrenaline. So stay with me. If you release that adrenaline, two really important things happen in your brain. The first part to go dormant as you prioritize your subcortical regions, your fight or flight. It's your parietal lobe, it's at the back here, it controls all your motor movements. So the first part to go dormant as you redirect your resources is called Broca's area. Now, Broca's area is responsible for speech production, like physical speech production and communication. So if you are on that fight or flight, if you're trying to express that empathy without sarcasm and with intent, you won't be able to, because this is offline. Now, split seconds after that, your prefrontal cortex goes offline as well. This is your ability to have empathy, to have compassion, to put yourself in another person's shoes and understand the world from their perspective. That all happens up here. So if you're stressed and you panicked, you smell that cigarette, or your partner revs you up, or a friend criticizes you, and it reminds you of a cascade of memories that you've accumulated where you feel you're not good enough, where you feel like you're putting up a front, or you're like peacocking to show to the world how great you are, but it's you're so insecure underneath all of that. The slightest criticism or failure will trigger that cascade because your brain will tell you, I'm not safe, I'm going to be exposed.
Mm.
And there you go. Prefrontal cortex offline, Broca's area offline. You can't communicate, you can't have empathy. So that's why self awareness and understanding your story, what got you to this point, is so critical because you're going to set off landmines that you're not even aware of
Mm.
en route, and you're going to lose the ability to have empathy. Now, empathy is so powerful because if you have a conversation and I feel attacked and you've got the superpower locked in, you can switch gears, right? That's that warning light going off in a cockpit. You stop flying the plane and you solve the problem. You redirect your attention intentionally and methodically to solve the problem. Okay, so now I'm pissed off, I'm offended, or whatever, and you switch gears and you choose to have a different response and you say, Andrew, given this context, I can understand that you are angry. And now you understand what anger is. Anger requires change. And then you ask, what can I do differently? Just that.
Mm.
Then I can tell you, okay, empathy brings my brain back online. You expressing that, and I can be like, Franz, I need you to stop shouting at me. They're like, I understand that. I say this because you often shout at me. You don't, but you know what I mean? So then you can start redirecting the flow of communication. You can bring it down from a cycle of attack, counterattack, defend, attack, counterattack, defend, and look at all your fights.
Mm.
It goes like that. It's defense, counterattack, defend, and that
Mm.
ends in violence or disengagement. Now, if you live in that, if you're in a cockpit and the captain gives you feedback, or your what FO, first officer,
Mm.
whatever, screws up and you spike your emotions, you're not in control. You're not choosing, you're reacting. And you're producing adrenaline. And if you live in that state, it turns into high cortisol levels. And that really screws with your ability to be in the moment. Okay, so that's why self awareness, understanding your context, and being in control and empathy is so important. And then the next line of defense, or actually the first line of defense, is your breath. So if you are aware that you're being triggered, your brain is going offline. The only way that you can, in the moment, regulate yourself without receiving that empathy is through breathing. Such an amazing system. And we complicate it so much by throwing medication at it and all kinds of things at it. But a deep breath and then out for longer than what you breathe in down regulates your nervous system.
Mm.
That's why people vape, they smoke. It's regulating that nervous system. So those three, knowing your trigger points so that you can smell the cigarette smoke and identify it correctly, being able to wield empathy and having control over your brain, those three things will enable you to be you in any given situation.
Sure, that's powerful. So I also want to tell you guys about a very extensive course that Andrew built. It's called You, the Protagonist, and it's available on the Captain Circle Squirrel community. Um, Andrew, I've gone through that a couple of times, and I think we had so many discussions around that, over a year and a half period of time. If you had to, it made me think of this because this is exactly what you, the protagonist, does. Right? It takes you through that entire journey you just described. And I'd really urge you guys to reach out and do that course way before you feel like you need it.
That's the crux, eh?
Yeah, because I feel like everyone I speak to kind of says, and it's aviation. There's a lot of cliches, and I talk about the two big taboo things. I talk about money and I talk about emotional health. Um, and definitely on the emotional health side, it's something you need to build the tools for. Like you need to build that toolbox way before you need the hammer, right? Like you already need the hammer in the toolbox before you need the hammer.
Well, that's like flying a plane, right?
That's
You
yeah,
you preempt
yeah,
disaster.
oh,
But in our emotional health side and our relationships, and that's why my practice is overflowing.
mm,
Because it's only when that plane is nose down
mm,
and the engines have cut out and there's flames everywhere and people are screaming and shouting, then they're like,
no,
I need to do something about this.
no. So it's like preventative maintenance.
Absolutely. You're setting the context of how you got to where you are.
No.
And context creates meaning. If you look at spending patterns, if you look at diet, you look at health, there's this whole lifetime that precedes that
Mm,
that you need to understand. Otherwise, you're going to be reactive in the here and now. You're constantly
mm,
keeping that plane from nosediving, which means that you're white knuckling the
yeah.
controls. You're not in control of your destination. You're just trying to survive.
Yeah, along for the ride instead of being the guy setting the vectors.
Exactly.
So I wanted to bring that up because if you're watching this, you have to find Captain Circles. We'll share a link for you and go find that course. Um, right now, we've done quite an extensive test run with the course because we really want a lot of feedback.
Mm.
And we are busy developing a whole bunch of short courses specifically on these
Mhm.
points and also more focused, leaning specifically into the aviation and what you'd
Yeah.
experience on a day-to-day basis. But as an overview, this course really builds um, your toolbox. I'm just going to keep it as simple as that. Like it gives you the tools to navigate life's challenges. And Andrew spent an incredible amount of time on it. The production value of it is ridiculous. It feels like watching a Hollywood movie. What do you think? I mean, we want people to use this. Like we built this to help the community. Maybe Andrew, from your perspective, maybe give us a 1 minute breakdown of what do you think that's going to do for anyone who actually follows the course and does a little bit of work, and maybe also give us a small breakdown of the course.
So that course is geared towards putting you back in the driver's seat or the pilot seat of your life. So often what happens is we really gun for these high stakes, positions. I want to fly airliners, I want to get there. And then you get there and you're like, oh, now what?
Mm,
And I'll get into hope just now. But what the course does is it takes you back, you contextualize where you come from, and then you look into the darkness. You go look at the things that you have in your proverbial backpack that might be weighing you down, that might be preventing you from making proactive decisions in generating wealth, in nurturing your relationships and nurturing yourself. And then it goes in the third week, it's about reestablishing your environment, your relationships. And as Daniel Priestley says, and that was such a profound statement for me, is that your environment dictates behavior.
mm,
So you go reestablish your environment. Where do you come from? You go look at people of influence in your immediate circle, and you go curate that. You go intentionally associate yourself with people that are going to take you in the direction you want to go. And then the last week is all about planning your future. It's about where you want your relationship to go, where you want your professional in journey to go. What does the next chapter look like? And you, the protagonist, you become the author of your life. And in that, you need to understand where you come from, the hurts that you carry. You need to offload those. Then you need to reestablish the environment that you're in. And then you can dream, right? Then you can look forwards. And France, this whole thing is based around the concept of hope. And if I may, can I do a dive into hope?
Love it. Yeah.
Um, I came across the works of C.R. Snyder, and he's the hope expert. And I was absolutely blown away in all my studies. Took me 8 years. I had some detours. Took me 8 years to finish all of it. I never came across his work. And hope is such a pivotal crux in what emotional health is all about. And I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to try to keep it short. I get really excited about hope.
Yes.
Now, we had this conversation with another pilot colleague of yours a couple of weeks ago, and I get really excited about this, and then I might become a bit boisterous or pushy, and he actually helped me to define it better. So thank you for that opportunity. Okay, so hope has three components to it. You have to have that goal that you're working towards. Now, as an airline pilot, that goal is and has always been to become a captain, to be in control of that enormous piece of machinery, to have those souls on board in your responsibility and you're directing where it goes. I mean, that's awesome. You know, maybe part of that picture is the money that you'll earn and the freedom you'll have and all of that. Okay, awesome. Now you get there and it doesn't quite pan out. Now it just turns into a job and the whole thing falls flat. Okay, so now you have to redirect. You have to look at where you went and you need to look, okay, where am I going next? All right, there's always progression. If you're not progressing, you're regressing. Nothing stagnates. All right, and this counts for anyone. So look at your kids, look at your spouse, look at everyone around you. We need to have that goal that we're working towards that's in line with who we are. In Afrikaans, there's a word "asite," and it translates to English into being, but it doesn't quite sum it up. It's your essence. All right, it needs to line up. Now, the second part is being able to navigate the setbacks, the challenges, the disappointments, the failures that will turn you into the person that can achieve that goal. And I always use the example if I had to, let's say your goal was to climb Mount Everest, and I'm like, cool, Franz, and you're on top of Mount Everest. What will happen to you?
I'll die.
You'll die. Yeah, you'll have a couple of minutes maybe, but you'll die because you didn't go through the
Didn't do the
journey.
work.
You
Yeah.
didn't become the person to
Mm.
achieve that, and there are no shortcuts. There are no quick wins. If it's a quick win, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be
Mm.
true. That's sound investment advice as well. So
We see that all the time.
you need to go through that journey, right? And then the first part is you need to believe in yourself to be able to navigate that. You have to have the agency to believe in yourself to get
Mm.
there. Now, that's where we fall short when it comes to emotional health. If your backpack is full of narratives and stories, people that told you that you're not good enough, maybe you had an abusive spouse, maybe you you failed at some things and you didn't properly digest them to turn it into wisdom so that it can serve you in favor of that goal, then the first basis, the basis or the point of departure is flawed. You're never going to get off the runway.
Mm.
And those narratives, like that cigarette smoke, is often in our subconscious. That's why you have to go back and rewrite your story so that you can be the author of your next chapter, where you're heading, that progression,
You can
right?
be the protagonist.
There we go. You can be the protagonist in your life.
Yeah.
All right, so those three elements, when they line up, and this is the crux. I use that word a lot, but I like it. That's the crux. When they line up, you produce dopamine.
Mm.
And it's Andrew Huberman that made me aware of the power of dopamine and how we need to engineer our lives so that we can turn our brains into dopamine factories. You got to be en route. All right. If you're producing dopamine, it's not only your reward neurotransmitter, it's the one that sustains the effort. It keeps you going. Without dopamine, there's adrenaline. Then you're in survival mode. All right. Then you're going downwards. And when you're in that survival mode, you don't have your prefrontal cortex online. You're going to look for quick wins You're going to make stupid decisions. You're going to buy the shiny stuff. You're going to be subject to the quick get rich quick schemes.
Mm.
You're going to find that dopamine in other things like alcohol. When we metabolize alcohol, we produce dopamine. Gives you that sense of reward and, I'm going somewhere. But the higher you push that, the lower your baseline gets. And that's where we become depressed. We trace relationships outside of our relationship because it gives you that excitement. It gives you that, something to look forward to. But it will destroy your life. Everything will crumble around you. We overeat. If you have a full belly, it puts you in that rest and digest. That neurotransmitter is called serotonin. And then they will give you SSRIs, which are antidepressants, and that stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So you artificially increase the serotonin in your brain, which puts you in an artificial state of rest and digest. But then your world can fall apart around you, and you'll be like, this is fine, because you're in that rest and digest, but you're artificially buoyant. You haven't earned your rest and digest. You haven't earned your dopamine. All right. So we look at these things as distractors. Overspending, it creates that sense of reward. Gambling, it creates that sense of reward. So all of these addictions are responses to a system that's in stress, that's in dire straits, and you're trying to get that short term dopamine hit. All right. So that's why hope is so important. And that's why you need to do the financial planning so that you have long term goals. You can hit your goals en route to that. In terms of your profession, cool, you've become captain. All right. So you're investing your money. And then I encourage you got to have a side hustle. You got to have something else that you're intentionally pouring your energy and your time into.
What about hobbies? Because
Absolutely.
because this is close to home. So I am 39 years old, and I've spent 74 years building a business.
It shows.
and uh, and I'm at the point now, and I think a lot of you guys are at the point where we've focused up so hard. You focused on your career. I focused on my career or building businesses and learning all this financial stuff. And I've never really spent the time on focusing on myself and what I want and what I need and what things make me happy. Like what do I really enjoy doing? So I'm at the point where I'm actually going, like, I don't have any hobbies. Like
You
I don't,
outrun yourself.
yeah, it's like I don't have any. Like, what do I actually enjoy doing? And it's an interesting thing. I think it's very interesting because maybe it's unique to me because I grew up with like no, it's not unique. It's definitely not unique, but I didn't grow up in a place where these things were actually a reality. So
Mm,
uh, around me, it wasn't normal to have the resources to play golf every Saturday or to buy a boat because you just want to buy a boat and go play on the dam or
yeah.
to go. So also maybe a part of it is not growing up with that framework. Maybe
Growing up in survival mode.
growing up as well, it was definitely. But now I'm at a point where I can justify it to myself because that's a funny thing that happens with money. Now I'm at a point where I can justify
Mm,
to myself actually spending some of this money to do something that's fun and that brings me joy. But it's interesting because now it's tough because now it's like it's almost like the world has opened up,
yeah.
right? There's almost now there's a few there's almost no hobby that I can't um, that I don't have the resources to be able to do.
Yeah.
But where do you start? And you still have limited time. I mean, I've got two young kids and a wife and a house and family and all the normal responsibilities and things that I love spending time on at this stage of my life. But I feel like I don't know if it's a need, maybe it's a need, but I want to break free of that a little bit and just do something for myself that I
Mm.
like really enjoy. Do you think that's a pretty normal place to be? What's normal? I think you know I'm getting
Well,
at. Like, how do you
effective.
figure that out? You know,
Yeah, it's important to again have that self-awareness that you're not a distractor. So let's say you have
that's
your
also true. So because I'm also in the back of my mind a little bit weary of what I choose.
Mm,
So it's like, I don't want to go choose something that takes too much time away from my people, right?
yes.
So now kind of in my mind, breaking it down a bit. I'm like, okay, I think it's probably buy a boat because then the whole family can come with.
Yeah, me too. I
And
think that's a great
yeah,
idea.
I think I
Yeah,
can buy a
I like spear fishing, and you can.
rubber duck, like a nice 5.5 foot, 5.5 foot
No,
rubber
that's
duck with
tiny. You need a big one. You need a big one.
like 50 foot.
Yeah, yeah. No, you want to spend time out there. You can shoot tuna.
I hate those. It's still fast.
So you make a really good point, and I like the cliche of guys um end up spending a lot of time playing golf. And you
Mm.
spend your Saturday playing 18 holes, and then afterwards you get drunk with your mates, and you get home, and your wife's angry, and you're
Well, your Saturday's gone and half your Sunday.
exactly, so you got to be contextually aware. That's a distractor. You're running. You've got some fires to put out. You need to look yourself in the mirror.
Mm.
And
Do
it
so. I mean, for me, it sounds like they probably need to do your relationship course.
yes, I
You know,
would definitely recommend
the
that.
relationship course. Andrew's got a bag full of tricks.
It's and it's to turn your brain into a dopamine factory, so you can have a kick-ass existence
Mm.
and bring all your people along, and to be fully yourself, to experience the joy of that. That's what I do. I'm very practical in my approach, and my story is part of the you the protagonist, where I share my story
Mm.
and how I got to where I am, and the where all of this is based in. It's not theory, I lived it.
Mm.
But back to hobbies. um, you need to have three hobbies, I think is the term. One to keep you fit, one for creativity, and one to earn you money. And if you're really lucky, you align all three of those. So, your athletes are the best example of that.
I was just going to say, like, where's the time for work
Yeah,
then?
yeah. So, um, I've got a friend who flies for Cathay, and he's like a bit out of balance, but he's getting there. His one hobby is a business that he has that sells fishing stuff and like how to pimp my boat kind of things, and he's doing really well out of that. He still skates, and he goes to all the cities that he flies to, and he rollerblades, and he stays fit in that sense. Um, and he does all of his ads himself, and he really enjoys that. He built his shop himself, so the creative side is there as
Mm.
well. And he flies, and he manages his time, and he's married. So that's a good practical example, but it takes effort. He doesn't have time. If you the kind of guy who gets hammered and talks crap on how difficult life is, and you just complain, he won't spend time with you. He curates that circle of influence. In my own life, those hobbies have always been part of what I'm about. I started skating young. That's where I met this guy. I'm not going to share his name just because he
Mm.
didn't give me permission
Yeah.
to. Then I did martial arts. And as someone who suffered anxiety and depression myself, those things were my lifesavers. Then I started rock climbing, poured all of my energy and time into that. And then I started surfing, and surfboard design and all of that became something that I'm really passionate about. And then I started spearfishing. So I always have that thing. And it's with my small children, a lot of these hobbies have taken back seats. Like I surf once, maybe twice a week, but I go to the gym 3 times. I need to keep my body fit. And while I'm exercising, I listen to podcasts, I listen to marketing stuff. I really enjoy marketing. I really enjoy business. That's the creative side of it. And I'm earning some bucks out of that as well. And I practice, and I operate my therapy practice as well. And there's the balance. That's all I've got space for. I don't drink because I don't have time for hangovers. And I don't spend my time with people who don't go forwards in life. I don't overeat anymore. And I was like a functioning alcoholic. And that's not even being dramatic.
Mm.
I was addicted to pornography. I was eating too much. I was smoking all the cigarettes. And in my journey as psychotherapist and as father and as human, I went through all of that. And I needed to get my hope in where I'm going. Otherwise, I would have screwed it all up. And my relationship, my practice, the people I get to serve, that's where it all changed for me. And you need to figure out what that looks like for you. What are you building towards? Having a Mustang in the garage, having lavish holidays, um, buying fancy stuff, it's going to deplete you, man. You get the dopamine hit, but remember your baseline drops. You're going to get depressed, and that's what you'll fight. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, perfect. So I think the dopamine thing, I mean, when we started talking about that, it just makes complete sense. You know, it just makes complete sense that we get on this wheel to just chase the dopamine hits. But what if instead of chasing the big highs and then suffering the lows, um, feel like what you're saying is if we can do the work, and I mean, I'm experiencing it in my life. If we can do the work, instead of chasing the highs and lows, you can get to a point where it's almost like a steady flow.
Upwards.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, a steady flow up or steady climb, maybe upwards. Um, and what I'm feeling in my life is it's gradual, but it happens quick enough that you can identify it,
mm,
and identifying it actually gives you way more validation, um, because it's almost a permanent state.
yeah, it's
It's
a
like
way of living.
it's a way of. So it's like when I started exercising 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago for the first time in my life. I mean, it wasn't a thing. I got extremely overweight. Still have about 10 kilos to go. Um, and I started with going to the gym for the first time ever, looking at what I'm eating. That was like I never did. Um, and uh, there's a lot of similarities there where everyone would always say, it's not a diet. It's not a crack. Like, don't think of this as a 2, 3 month
Mm,
makeover thing. Like, gradually bring the stuff into your life for it to be your lifestyle.
yeah.
And that's on the, I mean, really the eating thing, because I'm like a complete emotional eater. Like, if I have a
Mm,
hard day, hard week, hard month, which obviously you never has as an entrepreneur, right? It never happens. Everything
smooth,
works out
smooth
perfect
journey.
and it's
Yeah.
great. But so the combo of entrepreneur and like a bad eating habit, like that's a lethal combo. But anyway, I think I've overcome maybe 80% of that. The point is, I can identify the big changes in my life over the last uh, 3 years. I'd say there's been massive changes, and nothing's really been a big ooh-ha.
Mm,
There hasn't been like a big revelation. Um, it's been small decisions compounding to become
yeah,
like a way of life. I mean, I also haven't had anything to drink in like 2 years or something. We're pretty close to
different.
that. And that makes an exception. And for me, the thing with the drinking is it's nothing. There's no funny. There wasn't any big, light bulb moment. But what I feel now is the most powerful thing is that I can rely on myself every day. That's
Mm.
it feels like a gift. It feels like a
Oh, a gift from you to you.
yeah. It feels like every day I can show up. Like there's no.
So that's discipline,
Oh,
right? And discipline is the greatest act of self-love because it's doing the thing every day that serves you in favor of progression.
and I just want to say, drinking is it's an example,
Yeah.
right? There can be lots of other examples, and I wanted to share a stat while we're in the drinking. So there's a stat. I forget the exact university's name, but it's one of the big top 10 universities. Um, that someone did their doctorate on aviation, and they went specifically to alcohol abuse, and the numbers were pretty scary. I'll share the link for you guys to see the last article that I did on that on LinkedIn. But it's something around 12.5% of pilots can be seen as, trying to get the word, I think they said functional alcoholics or something. It was a big number. And that, and look, we focused on aviation, on pilots, so we use that. There's a lot of industries that you can go into where that
Yeah.
number would be way higher. You know, like
It's
it's
where you get
the dopamine.
and it's
That's the quick.
normalized. It's
I
yeah,
mean, you could go anywhere in June.
yeah.
Like there's nothing. I mean, certainly there's some places maybe where you are in the world where there's like only designated areas or something,
Mm.
but there's always a way around. You can almost always buy alcohol, sit at home, make a fire, you know,
But
drink
again, it's back to dopamine. It's
dopamine.
not about the alcohol, it's about
Yeah.
where you get your dopamine
Yeah, that's just the tool. That's
from.
the outlet. It could be pornography. It could be, I don't know, there's a
Cheating,
gambling.
eating, gambling,
Yeah.
over exercising, killing
No.
yourself in the gym.
Affairs is also a big one.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
getting that excitement, that like,
Yeah.
am I going to get caught? Am I going to go? Type of thing. So I think it all stems down to that. Bottom line is, we can talk about this till we purple in the face, and we can build all these courses. And
Mm.
we've done so much work for you guys already. Go
So
and find the.
just to jump in there, protagonist is 4 weeks long
Mm,
because it takes 30 days of doing something every day to form a new habit.
mm.
There's no shortcuts. And if point in your life where you feel you're stagnating, you feel "Ugh, I don't know where I'm getting my dopamine from, what I'm driving towards,
I think
you
a lot of people feel a simple question, and this is what I've seen in the boot camps the last 2 months. The simple question is just, what's the next step?
yeah,
You know,
you got to
just
figure
just
that
what's
out.
the next step? But I think you the protagonist, is the next step for you. Like that's
Start there. It'll open up your mind to what the next step could be. Get
mm,
back to being a dreamer, back to being that kid who looked at the planes flying overhead and was like, yo, one day.
mm,
And that kid's still inside and he still needs to look at something and one day.
mm,
And you've achieved it. You're there. But if you're not mindful about it, if you're not self aware, if you're not driving hope as a practical element in your life,
mm.
then you're going to run yourself aground. And I mean, the thing that keeps an airplane in the air is momentum.
That's money. Lots
Well,
of money.
they go hand in hand. But if there's no forwards momentum that's being fueled, then it falls out the sky. And if it's not moving, you can't pick where to fly it. It goes in your own life. A, a ship that's standing still is just a good, just as good an example. You can't steer a stationary ship. So, as humans, we need to be moving, and perhaps in certain industries, people create the illusion of forward momentum because of what they do, but they're standing still in
Mm,
terms of life. You've now arrived, but
mm,
there's only one point of arrival, and that's where you put your head down for the last time. Everything else is en route. And if you're not choosing your destination, it's going to be chosen for you.
yeah. I happen to know a thing about death and taxes. Only two guarantees.
Yeah,
Okay. That's been such a good conversation. Thanks, Andrew.
it's my pleasure.
I think I love having these. Every time we talk and have these conversations, I think of new things, and I get to reflect as well, um, just on my life
Mm,
and where I am in the process of, you know, starting new businesses within businesses, and how it all links up together, and how we really try and brainstorm a lot about adding value for our
mm.
community, for pilots,
Practically,
practically.
when it comes to emotional health and psychology, there's a lot of fluff.
Yeah, I don't care about the fun. I mean,
And
I think everyone knows me by now. I don't like something like this is really great because we can jump in for hours. Like I know we can sit here all day. We just can't because you've got lots of appointments coming up. But we can sit here for hours and hours and probably
mm,
do a live and sit for 10 hours and invite people in. And I was like, we'd be able to go down this rabbit hole because I really believe that it almost doesn't matter what you do if your relationships aren't strong. And I don't mean perfect. I don't mean like because I don't really think there is such a thing. Like everyone's got some sort of a friction, some sort of
There's
a
got
thing.
to be friction. There's got to be fights. You got to fight well, though, not each other.
Yeah, but I've also, yeah, but that's also something like a coin thing for me, right? It's like it's something people say. Uh, it is something people say, and it's just up until the point where you consciously start thinking about it and start looking
Mm,
at how am I actually reacting in this conflict,
yeah.
and like what's my contribution? Because I think for a very long time I felt like, and maybe a lot of people like I think for a very long time I felt like um, things were happening, things were only happening to me, and I wasn't recognizing my contribution
Mm,
to, if we just break it down to like one conversation, like my contribution to that conversation. And only once I started recognizing, hey, I'm, I can actually, in a very large degree, steer the outcome of this conversation
and solve the problem
and solve the problem.
and not fight the person.
Yeah, yeah, but it's so easy. You fall in that trap of like, there's got to be a winner, right? There's got to be a winner.
No,
There's got to be a loser. Like,
then
there's
you're
got to,
already, you're going, it's Mayday.
yeah, yeah. But it's tough because it's like you need to almost first recognize that before
Well,
you
that's
can make it.
the context, and that
Mm.
empathy is the next step. So we can go down this
Mm.
rabbit hole.
Love it.
And
Oh, I hope you guys are having fun joining us in these conversations. I think just as a last reminder, please go to Captain Circle. Probably the school community will be the easiest way to find us. Join us there. It's a community of pilots globally. It's growing very rapidly. And there we talk about all things finance, money, and we talk about all things emotional health, but real practical stuff. On the emotional health stuff, it's very important that we're building this as courses, and there's a reason why we're building it as courses, so that whatever your schedule looks like,
mm,
it can fit in with you. You can go through a 4 week course, and you can probably smash it out in 5 days if you wanted to. Personally, I don't think you get all the value if you
you
rush
need to
through it.
go through the process of getting to the top of the mountain.
But it's designed in such a way where you can just follow it and do it on layovers, do it when you've got some downtime. It's not massive courses. I mean,
Time intensive.
it's not very time intensive. I think the average is maybe like 10 minutes, something like
Mm.
that. The videos, it's videos. So there's video, there's content. You can read it, you can watch it. A really great way to learn and take things in. But I urge you, and I'm just going to say this while it is free, because this is we've put this all out to the community for probably a very short time, where we're putting it out free to you guys to use. And the only reason is so that we can get feedback, so that
Mm.
we can validate our theory, so we can mold it. And you, the protagonist, is probably the probably going to be the biggest, most comprehensive course we ever put
Yeah.
out there. The rest of it is going to lean in on some of those topics, but also zoom in on a lot of other topics, maybe quick win, topics. And that all of that stuff is all going to be paid for. So
So,
the time's now. Like this is when you want to be doing it.
and based on your feedback, we can put our minds together and make things that are practically applicable,
Mm,
so that you really get the benefit. And, Franz, I'm all about driving results. I'm not a chit chat psychotherapist. We tackle the problems, and it's got to be forwards momentum. You've got to feel the difference.
mm,
And that's my commitment is everyone that we serve needs to feel the difference in their relationships, in their lives. They need to feel their brains becoming those dopamine factories that drive them forwards with excitement and with just living this amazing life that we get to live and take everyone along in our wake.
I love that. And I also, and I kind of want to remind you a little bit that you are at the tip of the spear. Like just you being in the position you're in as a pilot, flying whatever operator you're flying at, you have achieved something that is exceptional. You've already achieved that. Now you've got the very fortunate position to spend time on making yourself a happier, more content,
Fulfilled.
fulfilled.
Actualizing. Top of Maslow's pyramid, right?
And it's like, it's so magical to actually be in that position to be able to do that. So also, maybe tap yourself on the back. Uh, you've achieved some great things.
But you're not done yet.
We're never done yet. We're always climbing and achieving self-actualization.
There we go.
But yeah, thanks for sticking around, having this conversation with us. If there's a spot somewhere to comment, give us some ideas of what you guys would like us to discuss next, talk about. That'll be great to give you some feedback that way. Andrew, again, like always, thank you so much for spending your time, all your experience on helping us communicate and dive into the aviation space. It is a taboo subject, which I actually don't understand why it is, because it's such a comfortable subject to talk about. We're just all here to improve each other. Thank you.
My pleasure. And hope to see you guys soon.
Go check out the course. Cheers, guys.
Bye bye.